the way out to Leslie. What would the land use changes be? What would the opportunities be for public realm, et cetera? But the most important one, I remember this, was economic. It was the cost. It was a hell of a lot cheaper and made more sense to take it down than to keep that thing up in the air for the next 50 to 60 years. And that's why that happened and why it passed with a very hefty vote for the council of the day. And as I said in my presentation, some of the people, and I respect them for it, they were right here opposing me, saying this is a terrible thing, this will be awful, I'll never be able to move again. And after it was down, they actually called me up and they said, you know what, we were wrong, works better.
Lessons learned.
Okay, Councillor Moser.
Thank you for joining us today, Paul. Have you looked at it from a practical point of view? And I'm still wrestling with this issue. the intersections of maybe looking at eliminating one or two of them, you know, as far as keeping things moving. We're still stuck with the practical portion of this. So have you had a chance to look at it from a point of view of intersections? It'd be nice if we could develop something where we could direct through traffic. You know, if we can develop something that allows through traffic to go through. So have you looked at it from that perspective?
No, I'm obviously not a transportation planner. Others have. But again, I go based on the evidence and based on experience. And I go right out here to University Avenue. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised to learn that the volume in the peak period two ways is in the order of 4,000 vehicles. A lot of people, and the Gardner we're talking about is 5,200. You know, I said, what? Are you kidding? 4,000, right? Big arterials move a lot of traffic, even with stoplights. And they also achieve other things of city building goals and public realm goals. You know, to me, the evidence is so strong for the remove option as the choice that the council should make at this time.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I'm going to ask a question because... Okay, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I know your views fairly well on this, but if you had the... is there... Is there the ability for us to achieve all of the objectives, to you know, retain an expressway, develop a grand boulevard, and develop all those links to the waterfront, that grand city that you envision? Well, is there an opportunity to do all of that?
Yeah, I actually think quite sincerely that the remove option gives you the best possible opportunity to achieve those objectives.
But for those who feel, that they don't want to queue up on the Don Valley, right, as they're coming down the Don Valley, they just want to ramp around and keep going at 80 or 90 or 100 kilometers an hour without a stoplight, right? Because their view is that if they all of a sudden have to come up to a stoplight, they're going to ramp up. Whether it's real or perceived, you know, the 2 minute, 3 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute. For those who just would like that, to do that swoosh, is there an opportunity here to do that in some way?
Not in my view. You know, if you want to ultimately support the hybrid, I think, frankly, they'll still be queuing up because look at those images.
So there isn't another option that could achieve all of those things?
Well, as I've said several times, the remove option achieves the vast majority of the objectives that this council has embraced over and over and over again. And I think that's the best choice you have. You know, we all have to make choices in life, but you also have to accept the consequences. And if you make this choice, in my view, of doing this hybrid, you'll live with the consequences for our kids and grandchildren.
Oh, we shouldn't even consider tunneling, like rebuilding a highway underground or something?
No, I think it's been said, never say never about anything. Future generations, who knows what the scenario is.
So this
but tunneling is...
This generation couldn't do it for future generations?
Tunneling?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
You're a city builder, I'm asking you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the fact is the cost would be prohibitive. And I think this is the best possible choice the council has before it, not only for today, but for the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holliday's now been inspired to ask a question.
Just one. Just looking at that map on the wall, there is a large, we talked about the Gardner being a barrier to access to the lake, to quality of life for people at that end of the city. But there's one other barrier there that we haven't talked about, and that is the rail corridor that runs through there, and it's significant. I wonder if you could add comment to the quality of interstitial space between the boulevard or the ramps and the rail yard, I guess, to the north, and what future that may hold for the city and how much value we should place on that space, given its proximity there and what we could use it for.
Well, I think that your staff report does speak to that, given the analysis and the two options. And I think with respect, let me just talk first of all about the rail corridor. It's not going anywhere. We all know that. That's a fact of life. But with the greatest respect, you know, many people have said to me, whoa, University Avenue, we don't want that. That's going to be a barrier, right? That's funny. Yesterday I saw tons of people walking across it back and forth and everything. And the median is the key to that, just as the West Side Highway is in New York City, to cross an at-grade facility. So I think that it's normal. It's quite reasonable. It's not something from Mars. This is a normal solution. The second thing with respect to the development opportunity, again, your staff report's very comprehensive. It speaks to the 12 acres that are freed up and the revenue potential of that redevelopment and tax revenue, et cetera. Again, you know, that option relates to public realm improvements. It relates to the goals of the waterfront, the goals that the council has gone on record as being very, very important. So those are my observations on that.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a quick question, Paul, because your questions, Councillor Mahevik's questions and your answers haven't, you know, encouraged me to do so. So the Gardner East is around 50, 60 years old. You're aware of that. And the deck and concrete barriers are in very poor condition. You're also aware of that. And I think you were here for the presentation this morning when we saw these horrible pictures of the timber bracing and the shipping work. And so my concern is when you look at all that, and now you're suggesting we take our time, does that keep you up at night?
Well, when I'm saying take our time, like I think, you know, I'm not saying add years to this. Maybe another month or two might be in order. That's all I'm thinking about. We've got to get this right. This is so fundamental. There's no argument, Councillor, with the condition. It has to be, you have to have a solution, and the staff report's crystal clear on that. And you have two opportunities before you. You've heard what my views are and the reasons why, and I would strongly encourage you to have the courage to do that, just as previous councils have.
So then after we decide, you better than anybody knows the process. There's a very lengthy design process that has to unfold, and then it heads to the province.
Yep.
And that can be, how long could that possibly take?
Well, again, I think the staff report laid that out, and my recollection, without going to the specific pages, is you're probably looking, before everything is ready to roll, so-called, with either option, somewhere around 2019, 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there. That's my recollection.
Okay, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. That was a long go.
Yeah, just like old home week.
Yes. All right, so we're going to move to our next speaker, and that is Andrew